Okay. Hi, Heather. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you. Thank you for
Good.
coming on the show. A lifelong Toledoan. Yeah?
Yes.
What does that involve?
A lot of ribbing and just love of my hometown, I guess.
Okay. I've actually never been to Toledo. I can't even remember going to Ohio, but
There's a lot of people can't, even if they've been here. I mean, John Denver wrote a song in the '70s, Saturday Night in Toledo, Ohio. Got a lot of traction. Um, yeah, it did. But my great grandfather came here from Germany. My grandmother was born here, and my mother was born here, and I still live here. It's a great city, somewhat undervalued by Toledoans themselves, but
well, I know that a lot of people in the United States live on one coast or the other, and the middle kind of gets flown over, as they say. They call it the flyover states. And I don't think that's all that fair. I think there's a lot of great parts of the Midwest that people should go and explore, especially these days where with COVID, international travel is probably not recommended. And
exactly.
but there's a whole country to see that people just overlook.
Toledo is fairly affordable place yet, and so just because I live here doesn't mean that I'm not allowed to leave. I mean, I can go lots of places, and I just and I have been a lot of places, but I always come back here. Toledo has got a great history. It's known as the Glass City. We've got a world class museum of art. We have a wonderful zoo. We're right on the Maumee Bay and the Maumee River and Lake Erie. A lot of fishing, a lot of things to do here. And so yeah, I'm proud of my city. I really am.
How is Lake Erie these days? Is it still polluted or is it cleaned or
It is a success story. Fishing is booming here.
oh that's great.
Uh,
Yeah.
we do have problems with toxic algae. That's not good, but that's we're working on that. That's because of farm runoff and things like that. But most of the year, we've got a great tourist industry here built around Lake Erie.
Well, I know that when I was a kid growing up, Lake Erie was considered a dead lake because of all the toxic pollution. But then I do remember that they went and cleaned it up, and it is a success story. Yeah.
It is. We have a very active core of supporters here for the lake who are working really, really hard to keep it that way. That's what our tourism is based on. It's we live on the lake practically, so why not take care of it?
Can you
So
swim in it?
yes, you can.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. That's great. So you are also an author as well as a journalist. You work at a newspaper.
Yes, I do. I've worked at the Blade since 1994. Journalism's always been my dream job since I think it was in seventh grade. I decided to do that because I wanted to eventually become an author. But I realized that I had to feed myself. So I thought, well, why not be a journalist? And during that time, it was the Watergate hearings and Woodward and Bernstein, and never was really interested in uncovering a national scandal or any type of scandal. I just enjoyed the feature type stories where I can talk about people and let them tell their story. That's something important to me. Although I still love the news. I mean, I'm a big, current event person who loves politics and things like that. But what I like to cover is is just people.
And you've got a book out called Sherman's March to the Sea. Is this, how many books have you written?
I have 4 to 5 books in the hopper, but Sherman is the only one to see the light of day. I just completed another book and I've sent it off to an editor so they can help me rescue it from myself. First drafts are never good. So I want to see if I've got potential with this one. But yes, Sherman's March to the Sea is one I felt really strongly about. I was quite inspired by the idea, and I worked really hard to get it done. And um, I like it. I'm pretty proud of it.
Okay.
It's not selling for any of it, but I'm working on it.
Well,
So.
tell us a bit about it. Give us a synopsis.
Sherman is, it's not William Tecumseh. It's a man named Sherman Crumpler, who is a widower. He's 78, and his kids take away his Lincoln, and he finds comfort in the senior center where he meets a woman named Savannah Lovejoy. And the two of them fall in love. His family is not happy. They think she's loud and obnoxious, which she is. But she actually steals the car keys to the Lincoln from his kids' house. And she tells Sherman, let's get out of here and let's travel, let's go across the country. And so they steal the car back and take off.
And what happens next?
Well, he has a lot of misadventures. What I'm hoping is the readers will wonder, is this because he's unlucky? Is this because he's really is a little senile? But they get across to the sea, but Savannah doesn't make it. She is the one who dies. So, and the two of them have a lot of misadventures along the way, which I hope people will find interesting. His family tracks them down, tries to take custody of Sherman because they think he's being manipulated, and he fights them. And he's the type of guy who doesn't really like to fight anybody, but he gets some backbone and stands up for himself.
Where did this story come from? Is this any true to life here? Are these people you know?
Well, it's kind of observing the elderly. It's kind of, it came from an idea from it was a phrase, a starter phrase. And I came up with this great idea for a short story. And Sherman's March to the Sea, and it was going to be just about a man at a senior center who gets into this walking program, and he adds up the miles, and he's hoping to get to the Pacific by walking. But actually, my husband, who's now deceased, said, well, Heather, he's got to have a love interest. And I said, well, I was just looking for this and that. And he goes, no, you have to have a woman named Georgia. And I said, well, then it will have to be a novel. And he goes, well, let it be a novel. And it just took off. I just really got excited for this book. It was an idea that just fed on itself. And it was one of the few books that just caught me on fire, and I wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote.
So how long did it take you to complete it from start to finish?
Yeah, about 3 months.
That's not bad.
But that was my first draft.
Okay.
And that was my working full time. My kids were all grown, so I didn't have that. But then it was the editing and the rewriting and rewriting and rewriting. Um, that took a little longer. And then trying to shop it to publishers and agents first. And I was told by my editor that it was a good book, but it was a quiet story, and I wouldn't get probably much interest from agents, and that was true. I sat on it for a while. And, the old thing about self-doubt was creeping up on me.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like, who am I to write this book, so after my husband passed, he left me some money, and I decided to go self-publishing. And that's what I did. And so it came out in January. And I've gotten good reviews, but it's marketing that I'm not really great at. Plus, I work full time still. And everyone who's read it has liked it. But it's getting it out there. That's what I need
that's
to do.
really the trick these days. And because of self-publishing, which is good and bad, I think, if depending on who you
Yes,
talk to, it's a double-edged sword. But as good as your book probably is, nobody's going to find it unless you scream from the tops of the buildings
right.
and let people know that it's out there, because there's just so much stuff
Oh my
that it's
goodness,
just going to get
yes.
lost, with everyone else's.
I once looked at some books in a catalog, and I found something about the sex life of pirates. And I'm going, if this gets published, why can't I get published? You know. And I didn't want to go self-publishing because I feel so much I always feel bad that I have to pay to get it out. I want somebody to say, "Hey, this is a great book. I want to publish it." But then I thought, well, it's got to get out there somehow. And a lot of books have gotten noticed that have been self-published. So let the chips fall where it may, and see what happens.
Well, it's a dilemma, because I know people that think that the content should just sell itself. Unfortunately, that doesn't
No.
work very well in this oversaturated internet market that we have. There's just too much stuff. So if you want it noticed, you're going to have to get marketing people, PR people, and they don't work for free. So it's you have to make it like you're an entrepreneur and you're starting a business. And in order to start your business as an author, you need startup capital, and you need to spend to hopefully get
Yes,
back. But on the other hand, I don't think that people should go into the business, if you will, of writing books with the intention of making a lot of money. I don't think that's the reason you should do it. You should do it because you love doing it, right?
I would like it to happen. I really would. But
Sure.
I understand what it's like. Publishing being successful and publishing would be almost like waiting for lightning to strike.
Or hitting the
Uh,
Powerball.
you don't know
Yeah.
what's going to take off. It is getting noticed. It is being an entrepreneur. Unfortunately, I like to give away things, so it doesn't help me. Um, but I thought too, because I was getting a little down, and I had this idea for this other book in my head. I've got several books going through my head, and I'm thinking, I'm not going to make any headway if I just have one book out there. So just keep writing.
Just keep writing. That is the best advice you can give to any author who
It
is
is, and
working
it's
their way up.
getting that editor out of your head.
Yeah.
Because the editor is saying, "How do you think this is going to work? I mean, come on, you know, this isn't any good. You're not going to make it." But I had this one story that I just finished in my head for decades. And I started the first scene over and over and over again, and I never went anywhere with it. I finally said, "Heather, just sit down and write it out." And I did, and I got through it. And I feel so much lighter. And if that's the only thing I get out of it, I think it's worth it. because it isn't floating through my head and keeping me up at night. And
Well,
that's a
exactly.
terrible thing to have.
Exactly.
It sounds so silly, but
No, it doesn't, because you get all those ideas, you got to get them out so that you can
mhm,
get on to new ideas. That's how it works, right?
right. And even though I'm in my 60s, everybody keeps saying, well, Heather, you got to get moving. You're no spring chicken anymore. And I'm thinking, well, for one thing, who wants to be a spring chicken? I don't. Yeah. And another thing is, well, I've got tomorrow as far as I know. So just keep writing. You're not dead yet.
Heather, we do have to wrap this up. We are out of time. Do you have a website that you want to give out, personal one or one
I
for the book?
do not.
Do not?
That's
Okay.
my problem.
Well, let's see.
But
Where
I'm
is
on Facebook.
you're on
It's
Facebook?
I'm at. You can look at me up at by Heather Dennis. Spelling weird with the two N's and two S's. And I'm on there. I'm online with Amazon and Barnes and Noble and a few bookstores locally at the Toledo Lucas County Public Library. And I'm going to start hitting up the senior centers too once they start opening up.
So, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story with us. Best of luck with the book.